Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea. This week I am joined with Brett. She is an incredible therapist and coach. She's going to be giving us some wonderful insight and wisdom into navigating the holidays, especially with little ones or bigger ones, but children in general, and kind of how to run smoothly during a season that can be very fun but also chaotic and stressful as well. Melissa unfortunately is not able to join us today, but she'll be back with us next week. But we get a little one-on-one episode today, so I'm excited to have Brett. I'm going to let her give a little bit better intro of herself, but I'm so happy she's here. She is full of so much wisdom, and I can't wait to learn from her and share that with all of you. So welcome, Brett.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm
Of
excited
course.
to be here. So a little bit about me. I started out my career as a teacher, actually a middle school teacher, and then went back to school for school counseling and was a school counselor at the middle and elementary levels for 15 years. And I had my kids in between and did some part-time and all the mom things. And then COVID hit and school's just really changed, and I've always wanted to be a therapist and now kind of morphing into a coach. So went back to school again, went into residency, and went the therapy route. So this is my office behind me. I have my own private practice. I see a lot of kids, and specifically neurodivergent and highly sensitive kids. That's really my niche, and working with their families. So that's what I do as a coach. I do a lot of parent coaching and working with the parents of those amazing and wonderful kiddos with brains that are just wired differently. And then in my therapy practice, I work with the kids themselves.
That's awesome. I didn't even personally know as much of your background, so that's so cool, the different ways in which you've been able to work with and experience children and families from lots of different perspectives. And it makes sense. I think it's what gives you such a well-rounded lens to do the work you do, which I think does set you apart from someone who perhaps, has only been in one of those lanes. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
But I know we wanted to chat a little today around holidays and kids and family systems. So I'll kind of turn it over to you, but I know this is something I hear a lot about from my own friends, from clients. I mean, I don't have children myself, but just managing myself during the holidays with all the changes and things is a lot. So then to be responsible for others. So I'll kind of let you take it away from there, but I'm excited to hear what you have to give us on this.
Yeah, this is one of those things that you don't really expect during the holidays. We know they're sort of dysregulating. There's this joke that, by the end, parents are so ready to send kids back to school. And that's really because everybody's dysregulated. Schedules are off, our eating schedules are off, our sleeping schedules are off. A lot of times we travel, and, it's great and fun for kids to be around all the cousins and the family. But especially for the kiddos that I work with, those just wired differently, highly sensitive, deep-feeling, neurodivergent kids, this time can be really stressful, too. Even excitement can be stressful. Anticipation can be stressful. Not having their trusted foods, not having their beds to sleep in, just things being different. Being around a lot of people can be really overstimulating. So there's an acronym that I teach to parents in my parent coaching, and it's HOTTTS, like the HOTTS. So it's H is for hunger. So it's hunger, overstimulation, tired, temperature, thirst, and sick. So really thinking about those sort of basic needs being satisfied. And I tell parents that we're here to be dysregulation detectives, because kids don't know what's wrong. They just know that they feel wrong, right? Or feel off. So that HOTTS is sort of a helpful acronym to think about okay, what might be going on here? Because all behavior is communication 100% of the time. There is no exception to that rule. And so as parents, we have to ask ourselves, what is my kid trying to communicate?
How important is it for the parent? Can we use that on ourselves too? Because I know sometimes, obviously, you want to help your kid, especially whatever age they're at or their learning abilities or whatever else, fill in gaps for them. But I'm wondering too that sometimes if the parent's not regulated, how actually helpful can they be to their dysregulated child?
Not is the answer. Because we're humans too. We all have nervous systems, and nervous systems talk whether we want them to or not. That's called co-regulation. So you're either sharing your chaos or you're sharing your calm. It's one of the two. So yes, the acronym definitely applies to ourselves as well. So asking ourselves, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I tired? which is so common, especially during the holidays as parents were exhausted.
Yes.
Am I overstimulated? I'm a very like auditory noise sensitive person. So while I love to be in those family gatherings and see everyone, it's very overstimulating for me. So I have to sort of prepare myself beforehand and go into a little deprivation mode and then prepare after, like know that I'm going to need more deprivation mode also. So think about that for your kids as well. Like, what do you need? Even teaching them through modeling. You know, this is what I need for my nervous system because I get really dysregulated. So normalizing that too.
So what do you think, in like a very real and practical way, how does this sort of translate, right? Because maybe this year we've already made the plans, maybe it is a little too much, maybe you just know it's not the ideal environment, but you have to go to, you know, cousin Susan's, or it'll be World War VIII in the family or whatever. So sort of in a real time way, especially because the holidays like now, maybe we can think more ahead for next year or whatever else, but we're in it right now. What might be like an example or something of a kid who kind of really needs one of those and you know it's going to be challenging? Like, do you have some in the moment tools or some language or some contingency plans that can be enacted if like a full boundary or like a whole disregard of an invitation or something can't happen maybe in this season?
Yeah, definitely. I think creativity is the key, and also not worrying about other family members' judgment or friends' judgment, which is hard as a parent. Like, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Because your kid shouldn't need a break, or like, why does your kid need that? And you are the expert on your kid. You know what they need. You know what you yourself need. So think about things like, even if it's cold, like grab those coats and hats, go on a 10-minute walk if you can. Escape to Aunt Susan's bedroom upstairs and watch YouTube for 15 minutes. Screens, you know, yes, limits, all that, but they're a no demand activity. So they can actually be very regulating for kids. Yeah. And it just creates a break. So think about utilizing those tools, which even if you're scheduled this year, you can still do that. You can always schedule in a break. Do you have to leave early? Do you know, like in your heart, that your kid's time limit is about 3.5 hours and like that's it? Maybe shorter. You got to go. Get out, whatever excuse you need to make, or even if it's before dessert, and if everybody's complaining, they can complain. You have to decide what's important to you. Do you want a regulated child who can last? You know, you are that dysregulation detective. So really think about that and what's going to make your whole trip feel good. Maybe not just this instance, because we know once they're gone, they're gone. It's very hard to get them back. So trying to catch that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what you're really getting at, and this often is something I think we can never talk about enough, and especially this time of year, is around our own values of what the holiday season means to maybe us individually, then to our immediate sort of family unit, and then understanding the values of the larger systems as well. But it doesn't always mean that those are all the same, right? And some compete and some might be at odds. But I do think that it helps take the pressure off of being good or bad or right or wrong, or it relieves some of the unnecessary guilt that we can put on ourselves if we can see it in this more neutral way of, you know, for your parents, and the grandparents, you know, old traditions and doing things like we've always done is their top value. And maybe for you, it's honoring what your kids enjoy and making new memories, and those are different, right? And so it's not like one is better or worse, or one's right or wrong. They're just not the same. So then it is this backwards thinking of what's the plan you can come up with that first honors yourself, because that's all that, you know, like you need to do you, but then is respectful or takes into consideration or acknowledges where that pushback might come up, right? And sometimes we can have maybe the conversation early or frame it in a way where we'll best be heard or received by those people when we're not gonna maybe do something the way they've always done it or whatever else. So I think we can never revisit them enough because our own values sometimes are shifting and changing, and I think that the more clear we get, at least for me, the better I feel than making my choices or stating my decisions because I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And thinking about it through a values, you know, kind of lens. And traditions can be so beautiful. And thinking of some of my own family traditions, even like odd ones that you wouldn't, like Christmas Eve, we all sit around after everything is done and listen to A Child's Christmas in Wales, which is this old like recording. My grandfather started it. But my kids do not care and they don't want any part of it. And like that has to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
I can't, if I were to force them to sit there and listen to it, or when they were little, you know, there was a lot of pressure, like just have them stay up and listen. No, I'm putting them to bed.
Right. This is better for everyone.
Right? Dinner went long. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like you said, we had to wrestle that. So yes, I love the tradition, but I needed to put my kid to bed because my 4-year-old was melting. So go ahead and do it without me if this is so important, if you need to, because we have some major traditionalists in our family. That's okay, but also you don't have the child to put to bed.
Right.
And sometimes, especially older family members, forget what that was like. They just don't remember the panicky feeling of a parent of like, oh, we're on the precipice, like it's about to, you know, the full meltdown is about to happen. And then bedtime takes 3 times as long. So you do have to
the next day. Right?
Yeah,
like Christmas Day, you're like, do you want them to be functioning and fun on Christmas? Like, what do you can't have it all. Like, what do you want? Is this more important now or that?
Which now? And that's such an important point, you know, and you as a parent have to decide, nope, this is the value that I'm choosing right now, even if it's going to make some other people uncomfortable. It's about boundaries, right? Yeah. Like the people who push hardest against our boundaries are the same ones who benefit from us not having them.
Exactly.
So, right? I want you to all sit and listen to the Child's Christmas in Wales. Well, I'd like my child not to be a disaster, so I'm going to choose that. So sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. What are some of the ways you have either heard from clients or from yourself? Like, what are some of your favorite boundary setting, like phrases or like mental fortification during especially like the holiday season that maybe we could share? Because I think some of the things that get pushed on are often really similar. Obviously there's like unique differences, but it's very similar like themes. So I just was curious if you had any that are your favorite comebacks to some of those or ways to mentally prepare for that really challenging, I don't know, like in-law or your own mother, father, or your sister or whatever, you know, like I'm just curious if there's something in there from your experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. As I'm thinking through this, I think that comes into 2 compartments. One is what we tell ourselves that's helpful, and one is what we say to others. So for the self, this is something that I teach in my parent course to parents. One is reminding yourself, this is not an emergency, right? Like emergencies are the 3 B's, blood, barf, and bones. Like those are emergencies. Those are my 3 B's. If that's not this, it's actually not. And of course, there's more to emergencies than that. I'm not suggesting that.
No, but I think it covers a lot of them, especially for kids.
It covers a lot. Not everything, but it covers a lot. But really with kids, those are kind of the big emergencies. And a meltdown is not actually an emergency. Our nervous systems interpret it like that. I'm like fully going into fight or flight, sympathetic as a parent if my kid is melting down, especially in front of family members. But reminding yourself, this is not an emergency. I've got this. And then to borrow from Dr. Becky Kennedy, I have a good kid who's having a hard time, which is really helpful. Like your kid is not trying to manipulate you, trying to do anything. Kids' brains aren't sophisticated enough to manipulate. They're not. They're trying to get a need met. So that's back to the HOTTS. What's the need? Like what are they trying to get met that's not met? And they don't know how. Because if they could, they would. They would have done it already. They don't know how.
100%.
So those are a few things to tell yourself. It's not an emergency, I've got this, and I have a good kid who's having a hard time. That's just helpful in the moment. And then things to say to others. Whew, this is a harder one because it totally depends who you're dealing with, right? Yeah. Boundaries are for yourself, right? Rules are for someone else. So a rule would be saying like, you can't talk to me like that, you can't do that, get away from me, which is fine in the moment if you need that. Boundaries are what you are going to do or not going to do. So for a boundary, for a rule, you can say, we need some space right now. Please give us a moment. Great if a family member responds to that. If they don't, if they're helpful and continue on, a boundary would sound like, if you do not step away and give us space, I'm going to take my child out to the car, or we're going to leave. Like we're going to have to leave. So that's really the difference between those two also. Both are appropriate in their own ways, but people who do not like to be told what to do often do not respond well to rules. So thinking about those boundaries you can set for yourself. If this does not happen, or if this behavior continues, we're going to go. Not shaming your child for it. Again, if they could, they would. Like if they could control it, they would. Meltdowns don't feel good for anybody.
Right.
But letting others know, if this continues, we're going to go. And whatever boundary is appropriate to set in the moment. But boundaries are what you're going to do, not what you're telling someone else to.
That's I, I feel like I know that on some level, but I don't know that I've heard it like totally framed that clearly. So I like that kind of reminder or rework. And I also like the lead into, and in other episodes, we've talked a lot about boundaries, but just that reminder too, that a boundary is a way actually to get like closer to someone. It's not necessarily to create more division. So if I'm being authentic and honest and open and letting you know my boundaries, my lines, then I'm actually showing more of myself to you than not being true to myself and fitting into something you want that's not comfortable for me, or letting you disrespect something that doesn't feel like good to me at the expense of myself to make you feel better. So I think sometimes we feel like we're being bad or mean, but sometimes rules or boundaries, both, are actually a way to be more open and close and authentic with somebody for a much better connection overall. And it's actually a worse, more false sort of connection if we're not being true to those or not expressing those, because we're not really presenting our true selves on some level too, or we're denying something of ourselves too.
Yeah, like a self-betrayal kind of a thing, if you're not setting your own boundaries. Yeah, absolutely. And then back to that idea of, somebody who's not respecting your boundaries, they're benefiting from you not having the boundary. So that's why they're not respecting it. So
Exactly.
that's why if a family member isn't respecting the boundary, you're going to go. Like, you're going to take your child and go, because that's only going to serve to continue to overstimulate, to continue to make the problem worse if you stay in that. And that really is a self-betrayal. I'm
Right.
going to sacrifice myself, my child, our regulation for you. And that's not fair.
No. And like as you're saying, that parent lens, you're doing like, it's not just you. It's like now you're sacrificing at the expense of someone else too, and that's like doubly inappropriate and unfair than if it's just you making that choice to disrespect yourself. That's a little different. But when you're doing that to a kid too, that holds a lot of weight. That might be a helpful way to frame it for folks when they have that hard time. Like, what's better? Make someone happy at the expense of everyone, or like really overstep your kids' needs without necessarily their permission, for somebody else.
Yeah, and that's a tall order if you're standing up to your own parent, or if you're standing up to an overbearing family member who, is the matriarch or the patriarch, or, the one that everybody listens to. That's not an easy thing to do. But like you said, if you're framing it as, I am protecting my child by doing this, I have to be the one to stand up because they're not able to do that. That is a different way to frame it. I'm in a different lens. And that's really important to do if you're considering your child's regulation.
Right. And maybe even feels empowering, because that is ultimately generally what most parents want, is to protect and support and teach their children better than they knew or did, right? And so I think it can be an empowering framework to step into, and even if it still is uncomfortable and might feel wrong because of lots of our own bullshit past stuff, it doesn't mean that it is. And uncomfortable things sometimes still are really good things for us too. Yeah. Living in our comfort zone is actually really unhelpful at the end of the day, if that's the only place we ever stay. So,
and you might get a lot of flack for it, like a lot of pushback. Somebody might be really unhappy that you're setting a boundary. Again, values, Okay. I've definitely been there. I resonate, where people did not like the boundary that was set.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
No, it's so true. And it can feel lonely. So I guess I just want to validate that too, that this isn't so easy. If it were, of course, we wouldn't even be talking about it. And two, it can be kind of isolating or lonely on some level if you do have a really challenging system around you who just doesn't endure change or pushback well. So just giving that credit too, and maybe I'm wondering if you have some ideas of what might be some, I feel like it's overused, but like self-care, like items that one could have on deck for themselves when you've done this hard thing, or you've made this maybe more difficult decision, or had to enact that boundary that did kind of like change the whole course of the evening or the vibe. So I wonder what might be some things that folks could do or engage in to help themselves and take care of themselves too, because again, this is tricky. It's not always like perfect and it goes well, like ChatGPT's plan or something, so sometimes it gets messy. So I'm just wondering what some of those.
Oh, okay, I won't do that anymore. Yeah, right. I mean, maybe if that's the case, but probably not. The biggest piece there, I would say, is a support system. If your family is not that support system, if they're the one pushing back, if your child, particularly if your child is highly sensitive, neurodivergent, and just has different needs than a neurotypical kid, which other people in the family don't get, don't like, why can't they just listen? Why can't they just do what you say? Why can't they just adapt? Why can't they just eat what's on the table? It happens in my family quite a bit because I have very picky eaters due to sensory sensitivities. And it's really hard, right? It's hard to set the boundary. It's hard to hold the boundary. It's hard to say, I got it, don't worry about it, or especially to stand up to somebody too, like we were just talking about. Yeah. So who can you call? Who can you email, reach out to? Who can you send a really bitchy text to that's just like, oh my God, this just happened. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Is it a friend? Is it another parent who gets it? Is it somebody in your religious organization? Like, who is it? Can you email your therapist even if they're not going to email back? Just like pour it out. Like get it out of you. Don't hold it in. No matter what happened, if you set a boundary, you did a good job. You did a good job as a parent. But release that stress, just like we want our kids to release the stress. Because meltdowns happen when we have accumulation of stress, when it builds.
Yes.
So I always say to parents in coaching, when you see somebody who goes from 0 to 60, we're just not seeing the 1 to 59.
Right. It didn't actually go 0 to 60. There were all those cues before. They might have happened really quickly, but they were there. Yeah.
But likely the stress has been building over time too. And if it just happens over and over and over, then you have to look at, do I have a child in burnout or am I in burnout? And that's a whole other thing that we don't have time to get into today. But that's a whole other stage. But like what is all this accumulated stress and how do I release it slowly? Like if I'm a soda bottle and I'm all shaken up, my meltdown's going to be to twist the cap off and have it spill everywhere, which is what our kids do.
Yeah.
Right? But how do I slowly twist the cap? What can I do to help myself? I will say it's not all chocolates and bubble baths. Like if it is for you, great, like fantastic. But sometimes self-care is far more about releasing little bits, getting it out, eliminating things from our lives that are causing stress. Even people, like setting boundaries with people in our lives that are toxic or aren't helpful or are not supportive and are drains on us, and setting boundaries within those relationships about what you will and won't do, will not engage in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know this isn't true for everyone, but it also would be fantastic if perhaps you also have a supportive partner who you guys could have a game plan going in and know each other's limits and triggers and breaking points and have code words or plans or whatever ahead of time. That can sometimes be helpful. And like you said, I think just remembering to feed yourself, go to the bathroom, drink your water, movement. I'm such a movement person, but I loved that idea of the walk or like getting in your workouts that you need. Maybe they're different and not the same, but feelings are energy and energy needs to be released. And so a lot of times just moving your body, whether it's throwing a song on and everyone dances or doing a whole on workout or taking a walk or whatever can, and maybe you bring in a tradition with the whole family where we do something that we move. Like, turkey trots are popular on Thanksgiving for a reason. I think it is like a nice way to go out with the family. So maybe around Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever other sort of holidays you might celebrate in the December period, maybe there's another moving kind of thing you can add into the day to just like help with things or to get out on your own or have as a backup. And I love that idea too of like the venting. I get emails from clients all the time, not just about the holidays, but random ones that are like, I know you're not going to reply, but, and then they just like need to tell me something and then we talk about it next time. But I love that people feel like they can do that because it is such a nice outlet when it's in it's like to a safe contained place where it's not going to get like amped up in an unhelpful way, but you can just like throw it out there and then sort of move on. That really does help a lot for sure.
Right. It's like, what journaling, writing in a diary does, but you're sending it to a person. So, and even to your point about a partner and like having a contract with them, we work on this a lot in parent coaching too, about tag teaming and how do you recognize your partner's dysregulation triggers, not as a shame thing, as a support, like as a kindness that, hey, I've got this, having a signal, whatever it may be. I'm just thinking ahead with the friend you're going to call or whatever, I might send this super long text. I don't expect you to answer in the moment. Like, you don't need to make an emergency call with me. Like, it's not a 911 level, but I need to pour it out because it could be intense. So to be ready for that.
Yeah. And even asking permission from them to be able to do that too, I think is helpful. Just because this is totally separate and also we don't have to dive deep into it, but I think the access we have to each other through text these days is so different. And I do think there's sometimes this weird pressure of you're supposed to be available. Like the amount of times I talk about this in therapy is like people in like group chats or answering texts or like how overwhelmed they get and they feel like a bad friend. And I'm like, but also it's the middle of the day on Tuesday. Like you didn't sign up to say, I have time to talk about all these things right now. Like, so you're not breaking some agreement or just ignoring. You're at work. This person has a different job or life that they can be texting right now. So even like if someone woke up Christmas morning to this long thing, you know, I think it's just giving, like you said, a little heads up or permission to invade someone's space like that on a holiday that they're also celebrating, understanding what it all means. And if they're not okay, then like coming up with a different way, maybe they email the friend instead and they can check that later. But just because I think we sometimes don't realize how much access is just there. And it is creating our own decisions around how to navigate that or what that means or how we look at it too. Because even if you don't answer right away, you still see it and it's still, God, that was like a heavy, you know what I mean?
And it's overstimulating. That's one of the things. Yeah, it can be overstimulating. So then your nervous system's on alert. God, do I need to help? Do I need to jump in? And if you're a helper kind of archetype, then that's, you're like wanting to jump in right away. So, right? But yes, to have that agreement of you don't have to jump in right away. That's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
But, by the end of the day, or you don't have to respond at all, or, whatever it may be.
Yeah, just communication. I think we're all like not great at it and we would be out of jobs if people were great at it. So
exactly. Thank goodness.
But I think it's just continuing to always be evolving and improving and thinking, especially as the world evolves with how we can communicate or what that even means. It's constantly changing as well.
Absolutely. So. And kids' communication is so different, because they don't have the same verbal abilities. So, play is their communication, behavior is their communication, as I said in the beginning. So that is also part of what we do in parent coaching is decoding those behaviors because that is how they are communicating and that's its own language. Yep. And then how do we respond to that to a child with a highly sensitive nervous system? A nervous system that runs hot. That's what I say. And that's what they do. And it's a different approach than with a neurotypical kid.
And that makes me think too that perhaps part of the work you do with the parents is maybe also accepting that some of the things that would be ideal in their perfect holiday might not get to happen because we have to take into consideration the child that you do have that is who they are, And so I think that there might be some grief or loss in just, I always imagined that's not going to be as possible for us, or we can't do that in this way or whatever else. And so I think that I imagine that's something that maybe is unexpected. I don't think we always know how much expectation and like ideas of the future we have until something really confronts that plan and then it gets like shattered apart. And of course we're thinking ahead because that's life. And so even if you weren't someone who really thought you had such a hard like attachment to something, but it's interesting how it sneaks up and you're like, oh God, I really like had a belief or a thought or a thing about that. And now it's getting challenged and I didn't realize how connected I was to that.
So true. So true. Especially if you're more of a like say yes to everything person, like I want to be involved, I want to be engaged. Mm-hmm. And yes, we'll do the parade, and yes, we'll go to lunch afterwards, and yes, then we'll go to, Surge or whatever. And if you have a kid who is not wired that way, you're going to have a very dysregulated kid if you do that. Yeah. Versus respecting your kid's boundaries, doing some detective work. Like where would their energy limits be? Where would their sensory overload be?
Right.
And that's where you can potentially coordinate with the partner, with another family member, and JOMO, the joy of missing out. Like just say no, we're not going. Like we're not going to do all that.
Yeah.
And that extends beyond the holidays too. Absolutely for the holidays. 100%. But yeah, I say no to certain birthday parties because I know they are going to be way too much for my kids.
Yeah.
So to certain events or certain trips or, we do Disney very, very differently than some families do Disney. And that's okay. It's just, it's slower. It's a different pace. It's not go, 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 because I don't have those kind of kids. So it's just respecting who your kid is, where they are, and to your point that there's grief in that, right? Or there can be. Like, I had this idea of what it would be like, and this is not it. But this is what is. And just the radical acceptance of this is what is. And how do I find joy in this? In where we are now.
Right. Because there's still always, no matter what, there's always another side of the coin. So there's always something good, even if it's like one thing, for 800 bad. But like neither exist in a total vacuum. It's not always all just like perfect, and it's not always all terrible. And I think constantly kind of coming together to hold the scales. They don't always have to be balanced or equal, but just holding space that these other things exist within the heart as well. It just roots us to a more accurate place to help us make that next step, and is that nice little reminder, like, okay, and we get to go home early and put our pajamas on and watch this movie, just the four of us. What a much better day than sitting there with 30 people screaming, like, I actually prefer it, so there can always be a positive to giving something else up.
Yeah. And then you're also just modeling to your child that that's okay. I can respect my own bodies and my own body and my own limits. And I can say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
you don't have
so
to push
true.
yourself past the point of exhaustion. That's
Right.
That's not
Right.
healthy.
It's so funny. My husband actually, I feel like, taught me that lesson for myself. I'm like very extrovert, and I always can like make anything work, and I'm down for whatever. And I grew up in LA, and then I lived in New York. And so it was you just do a lot. You're never home. And then I met him when I moved to New Orleans, and he's like an extroverted introvert. But Taylor has no problem telling someone no. He has no problem just like not doing something. And I'm like, when we first met, I was like, what? You're just not gonna do that? Or like, what is happening? Yeah, like we're just sitting at home for the day. I don't understand what's going on. But over time, I really appreciate the lesson that he is, and he lets me be me. Like if I need to go do, he might not go or leave early, whatever. But just that reminder that maybe there's something beautiful in the slowness and just being with yourself and not saying yes to everything and thinking about my energy different. I might have a lot of it, more than some other people, but it doesn't mean it's never ending or it doesn't come without consequences. So just to learn that as an adult person from another human who I trust and love was really nice. And I think how much better if I had learned it more fully as a kid. So, I think it's a great lesson you can give them now. And of course it evolves, like we all become different people in different stages, but it is such a nice permission slip. And maybe even as the parent listening, maybe you aren't the yes man like you thought you were. Maybe it's okay to like do it a little different, and what would that look like, and giving yourself permission to play with that, because it can be really freeing, I think. So.
There's always a good question that I teach parents that can be helpful, like, how is it good enough? Like, how is what's right now good enough? So that's really, instead of focusing on what you're missing out on, you're focusing on what's good and like what's good enough.
Yes.
And that's, again, that reframe can be really powerful.
What is maybe one last little piece of wisdom or a takeaway that you want to leave folks with? You've given us a lot already, but just a last little share.
Yeah, I'd say really try to be that dysregulation detective for your kids and for yourself over the holidays, and be aware of their nervous system shifts. You are, whether you know it or not. It's when we sense like it's getting rough or it's about to go downhill. That's being aware of nervous system shifts. Know their triggers. If they're a hangry kind of kid, be ready. Have snacks, or just the more prepared you are, the better things are going to go for the stuff you have to do. And JOMO, like the joy of missing out. Don't be afraid to say no. So it can still be a beautiful holiday, and you can say no to some things.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Brett. I've really appreciated this conversation. I think it's going to be so helpful. Where might folks be able to connect with you, or what kinds of things could maybe people reach out to you about after this if they're interested? I'd love to give you a chance to kind of share some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a website. You're welcome to reach out. I think that's going to be linked in the
Yes, all the links will be in here.
So you're welcome to reach out that way. If you are interested in one-on-one parent coaching, or two-on-one, it usually is, you're welcome to book a discovery call with me, and I'll be taking on new clients in the new year. I'm also going to be launching a new course, like a mini course, that will have a lot of this information that I talked about today, with a whole lot more too, just about how parents can regulate, co-regulate, connect with their kids, repair well, all those really important things to work on that regulation within ourselves and within our kids. And then in tandem with that, I'll be launching some groups, some parent groups, which is just sort of a lower price point than some of the one-on-one coaching or two-on-one coaching. And so those will also be launched in the new year, so that parents can find one another in community and work on some of these things together to strengthen their parenting with our kiddos with those nervous systems that run hot. Because it's a challenge, but a beautiful one to parent them.
Amazing. All such good stuff. Definitely check out her website, her offerings. The links will be in both newsletter and here in the YouTube description. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Alisha.
Yay!